Prova? Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm Carola Frediani. I'm an Italian journalist. And I'm very pleased to be here introducing Hossein Derakhshan, who is an Iranian journalist and blogger. He was actually the pioneer of the blogging revolution in Iran. It all started, I think it's worthwhile to briefly recount his story. In 2001, Derakhshan started his blog in the Persian language, and his activity helped other Iranians to blog, sparking really a blogging revolution in the country. I think that, as he wrote, many Iranian people would go to him looking for help in order to start blogs. And he was basically the first person any new blogger in Iran would contact at the beginning. And that was before 2008. Then something happened, and I think it's worthwhile to remember this. And also I think that he had, someone said that you had one of the most, we said it before, one of the most chilling Twitter timeline, because in 2008, you just started tweeting, and you tweeted that, I'm back in Tehran. I'm in bed with my laptop in Tehran, and then there is like a jump to 2013 when you tweet, pardoned by Ayatollah Fred last night, because you actually have been in prison 6 years, right, for what you wrote online. But we are here to tell another story also, the story that when you got out of prison, you also found a different web, a different internet. So we had entered the era of social networks, and the era of the streams, of the algorithms, and you've been very critical of this. And you wrote many articles addressing these issues, what it means and what is at stake. And in particular, you wrote this essay, which is called "The Web We Have to Save." So I think that today you will talk to us about what is this web that we have to save and how we should try to save it. So I really thank Hossein for being with us, and I let him to talk. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. It's great to be back to life, back to the world, and back to Europe, and back to Italy. I wanted to talk a little bit about the background to what I have been doing since mid-90s as a tech journalist in Tehran. But she explained everything very well. I was a technology journalist for a reformist newspaper. Then I immigrated to Canada, and that was there that I found blogs. And it was kind of related to 9/11, to the events of 9/11, because that's how I discovered what personal accounts people were writing about, the consequences and the meaning of it, the Americans I'm talking about, and that's how I discovered a new, very powerful medium called blogs. So I was fascinated, and I started my own. In Persian, it was a bit difficult because of the technical issues that, at the time, web browsers and also web publishing platforms had with right-to-left scripts like Persian, Arabic. So it was a bit difficult in the beginning, but then gradually I discovered that they were now supporting Unicode and right-to-left languages. And that's how I wrote a manual about how you can start your own blog in Persian, and that started the whole thing afterwards. And then I was kindly called by some Iranians and by journalists as the blog father of Iran, which is a bit ironic in a way. It also reminds you of Godfather. So I'm going to talk about what I discovered after 6 years of being in a cave, let's call it, how I discovered the internet, the new mechanisms, the new atmosphere. And then I would be talking about what was lost as a result of these new changes. Then I would be talking about how some capacities and potentials were lost for journalists, especially, and also for our larger societies. And then I would be talking about what we can possibly do to revive some of those great potentials that the internet used to have, either for the larger societies or for journalists and for journalism. Okay. What I discovered after 6 years of being absent from the internet was that the World Wide Web, the great invention of, I think, one of the greatest inventions of human history, was almost dying. And the reasons were three reasons for that. At the heart of it, and the main reason was, I think the most important reason, was that hyperlink, those links, those little blue underlined texts that for the millennials is something probably strange and unknown now, were in decline. Especially because social media were not very friendly towards hyperlinks. They were not supporting them very well. For instance, Instagram doesn't even allow hyperlinks, and Facebook and some other social media, maybe less Twitter. Twitter is still the most link-friendly social network and platform. But Facebook treats hyperlink not as a relation to other pieces of text or to other pages outside Facebook. It treats them as objects, and that's how it removes and it deprives the great potentials that hyperlinks used to have. It objectivizes hyperlinks. It showcases them. You can only put one link. You can't select any piece of text, a few words, for example, and link it to another page. Those are all signs that Mark Zuckerberg is not very friendly towards hyperlink. And I think now that he's made this empire, it's quite a grim future for the hyperlink. And because hyperlink was the foundation of the web, this is the main argument why web is in a huge decline, and I would say it's almost dying. Then we also have a weakening of the business model of the web, which was advertising. That is also declining because of ad block, which itself is a result of intrusive and invasive and really, really annoying approaches by many websites when it came to advertising. Lots of banners flashing all the time. And it was really annoying, and it has slowed down the process and the experience of web browsing so much that many people now prefer to work with mobile apps rather than websites when it comes to news websites or newspapers, magazines. Then the third reason is also related to this, which is because we are observing a rise in mobile phone use, which is obvious and which is happening everywhere in the world. We also experience how difficult it is to browse the web on our phones. It's very difficult. It's very different at the same time when you compare it to a laptop or desktop, because you have many tabs and it would be easy to switch between tabs, to open new tabs, to quickly go with your mouse or with your trackpad to where you want to click. This is a bit different from the experience you have from mobile phones. And I think one of the obstacles for web on mobile phones is that it's not really designed for mobile phones. Web browsers were migrated with the same concept, with the same user experience to mobile phones, and that's not really working. So these were the main reasons that web is dying. Also, there is some legislation in some countries that are trying to curb the power of hyperlink with different arguments, copyright laws or some other complicated legal things that I don't understand, or policy things that I don't understand, but there are attempts to curb and to control the ability of users to link to anything that they want. So with the loss of hyperlink as the foundation of the web, we are now experiencing a very, very different internet compared to 10 years ago. The new internet is not diverse, as decentralized, as non-linear, and as open as it used to be. It's also less archivable and indexable for search engines and to find them later on. Now we are experiencing a very centralized, very linear, and very closed space. It's also very inward-looking, and it's also very insular. But worse than anything, I think, would be the loss of diversity. And I'm telling you why this is happening. I think one of my main discoveries after a few months of thinking of how things have changed and what has really happened to the internet during the time I was in prison, I realized that I think after maybe 20 years of an amazing window in the history of humankind, where nonlinearity and diversity and all those great things were promoted, now the virtual world is catching up with the real world. And I'm saying this in the context of social values. If we look around us, everywhere we look, there is dominance of popularity as a social value and dominance of newness as another social value. And these are the same two values that dominate social media and their algorithms. The stream, the news feeds, the timelines in Twitter, these work based on these two values. Whatever is popular is deemed as more important, and it gets more visibility. So the other side would mean that whatever is not popular would not be exposed enough, would not gain enough visibility. And whatever is not new doesn't also get enough publicity or visibility. These are the two values very well reflected by our society's obsession with young celebrities. And this is now happening on the internet. So now we are experiencing a shift, I would say, a paradigm shift from what I call library-internet, which was the previous internet, which was the initial internet in mid-90s towards mid-2000. From library internet to TV internet, I would call it. This is the closest experience we can have to television. Now, when you log onto your Facebook, you don't even need to log on anymore on your phone. It's already logged on. When you start scrolling or swiping, that's your personal TV. You see little bits of text, images, moving images, still images, and everything is tailored for you, is personalized for you, based on what you've already shown an interest in, what you've already liked. The chance that you would be surprised is very low now. You only get what you are used to. It works based on your habits. And this has serious consequences. I would start with larger social consequences. It has led us into very small bubbles of ideology and preferences and norms and attitudes. It is suppressing minority views because they would never get enough likes or reshares, so nobody would be hearing them except for their own bubble. So it's fragmenting the society more than it was already, and at the same time it's destroying the connections that these different various islands in the society used to have. And hyperlink, for example, was one of those bridges that would enable these small islands to be exposed to each other. What else that happens, another thing that happens in these bubbles is that everyone's views and opinions and attitudes is being reinforced because you are only exposed to people like you. The people usually, not always, but usually people who leave comments on your posts are the ones who have already liked one of the things that you've written before, and that means they are already close in, they have a similar opinion in a certain topic to you. So this is also very important, especially now that we are dealing everywhere in the world, especially Europe, is dealing with a radicalization of minorities, religious views or nationalist groups. This is actually how the social media is helping them indirectly, because they're never challenged anymore. They're rarely challenged. So internet has changed from something that had to do with intellect, something that was an intellectual act. It involved thinking, reading, and debating. It's now turning into pure entertainment. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there is some truth to it. It now works on emotions, and it rarely challenges us. Again, in some ways like television, especially private television. For journalism, I would say there are other things happening as well. Writing has become much easier than it used to be. Anyone can write very easily, very quickly, and publish. But being read is harder than ever. It's very, very difficult to get something visible to a number of people, to a large number of people. Unless you have a big following already, unless you're a celebrity, in which case I think TV celebrities would be the biggest, you wouldn't have this influence on the social media. People might be saying that it was always the case, and there's some truth to that as well. But the connection between the real-life celebrities and online celebrities is now very strong. It wasn't like this maybe, or maybe it wasn't measurable at the time. The other thing that's happening to journalism is that how Facebook is becoming a publisher from a platform. It itself is becoming a publisher with Instant Articles project, if you're familiar with, which is a project that allows news outlets to embed their posts and their content within Facebook without forcing people to go out of Facebook because they would lose you, and if they want, that's the whole purpose of many of these social networks, to keep you as long as possible, because then they would be making money out of your gaze, which is, I think, much more theoretically rich than attention as a concept, because there is a history to gaze. The power relations with gaze has been discussed within the history of film theory, for instance. Laura Mulvey, for example, has been talking about gaze, male gaze and all that, and Michel Foucault, for example, has also talked about medical gaze and other kinds of gaze. Gaze is a very good instrument to analyze many things when it comes to the internet and media, instead of attention, I would propose. So in this competition to gain more gaze from audience, I think that Facebook has become a publisher itself. The content is produced somewhere else, but then it's Facebook that decides what to show to whom. It's not the newspaper editors anymore. So in a way, the social media, especially Facebook, have become the new gatekeepers. They have taken out the control of gatekeeping from many news outlets. And it's interesting that for the first time a few months ago, Facebook is driving more traffic to news websites than Google. And that is very meaningful in a sad way. Because the problem is not that, who would be driving more traffic to a news website. The problem is the algorithms that are secret and they're closed. Newspaper editors have no idea how, for example, Facebook decides to show what to whom. And this is scary because now, with the dominance of social media, whatever that is located outside the social media, it's as if it doesn't exist anymore. Google is also changing. It's going through a transformation of its algorithms. And soon, I think, it would be very difficult for web pages outside social media to exist. And that's even more sad when you realize that more than 50% in India and more than 50% of people in Brazil think that internet is Facebook. I don't know how more sad it could be, and how backward we are actually moving towards a time when AOL was the internet, or these networks, intranets, where the place people were experiencing everything that was connected to the idea of the internet and digital experience. So Facebook, for instance, has stolen the readers from newspapers, and now it's selling them back one by one. Very soon, even for instant articles, and it's already happening beyond that, anything you post, if you pay attention, the number of people that you can reach is very, very shaky. It's very controllable by Facebook, and it doesn't follow a clear logic. If you make a page or a group on Facebook, you would realize that you would always be encouraged to boost your posts, which means they've already stolen your audience. You used to have a blog and you would directly reach them. But now, not only you've lost them, but you're not even able to reach the very people that are following you on social media. And that's quite shocking in many ways. You have to pay Facebook to be able to reach your own audience that would, who were coming to your website for a long time directly for free. So this new internet, which is very similar to television, at least the experience of it, there are also some other similarities, like prime time. You have prime time on Facebook and Twitter. If you post something in the wrong time, you wouldn't be as visible as if you posted it in a good time, when there are more people on their phones, for example. And if not, your tweet or your post would be history without even being read or seen, like television. So what we've gained, I think for the past maybe 7-8 years, there has been lots of talk about how social media is benefiting the world and all those things. So I don't think there is necessary for me to add more to what we've gained. Although I think some of it has been completely superficial and shallow, those promises, but I think there has been some truth to it. It has had, obviously, positive impacts. But I think the losses outweigh the gains. So I think we now have to start thinking about how we can fix things. What is a possible bright future for journalism and for our societies, given how the social media are dominating our lives, given how these algorithms are defining and determining what we buy, what we eat, where we go, who we date, and what we read and what we think. I don't think television, for instance, has ever had this power, but now social media have. So how can we save the early promises of the internet and the web? One way would be to revive the hyperlink. And this is a very difficult thing to do, I think, because on mobile phones, producing hyperlinks and using hyperlinks would be quite difficult compared to desktop and laptop experience. And I think web developers have not been imaginative enough to make it more easy. They all follow the same mechanism. When you want to link a piece of text to somewhere else, you have to select it, then there would be a pop-up, and then you have to copy and paste a URL. But you could imagine many different other ways you can encourage people to link to outside sources. There could be some sort of algorithms that would be suggesting some links based on your own previous experience of what you've probably bookmarked or those kinds of things. But no one actually has done anything to enrich and to facilitate the experience of linking. This is one way. The other thing would be a public demand from the social networks to open up their algorithms. This is really insane that we don't know how they are controlling many different aspects of our lives. And we know nothing about it. They are constantly changing it without us knowing anything about what are the rules, what are the mechanisms. And I think states in the near future should intervene, because now you have a big chunk of people's lives affected by these algorithms without having any kind of democratic representation in these social networks. This is a serious proposal for the states to legislate algorithms and to open them up, at least. And also, we have to imagine that other kinds of algorithms are also possible. Algorithms that surprise us. Algorithms that do not work based on our habits, based on what is popular, what is trendy, and what is new. And I would like to draw your attention to something that we all know, and we all like, and we've all experienced. DJs. DJing, basically, is an amazing way out of these popularity, newness-based algorithms, because what they play, what they choose, is based on surprise, and it doesn't matter if something is old or new. This would be one way for journalism curation, as the term now has appeared, and this is a new term for me, curation, when it comes to content. DJs are amazing role models and examples. So, and for journalism, the world is saturated by text and images. There are so many notifications coming to us every hour that I think many people have decided to just turn it off and be relaxed and not be stressed all the time. So it's becoming a very serious challenge for news outlets and for newspapers to reach their audience. And given the fact that for the first time, maybe after the emergence of digital media, we are now experiencing that the division between online and offline world is being blurred because of the mobile phones. Now I think it's time for journalism outlets, for news outlets and institutions to think more creatively how they can reach more people. And also, given that the web business model is dead, which was advertising, I think some of the traditional models could be working very well now that many things have changed. So in a way, historically speaking, there is a cycle now coming back to very primitive traditional way of journalism. And I would have some suggestions. Apart from what you can do in digital and all that, I think we need to take journalism to the streets. And by that, I mean, maybe it's time now to combine contemporary art forms like performance art, installation art, and mix it with journalism. So let me give you some examples. Imagine, instead of notifications for a breaking news, there would be hundreds of volunteers suddenly spreading in this city, in public places, wearing a t-shirt on which the headline of the breaking news is. And they would also be shouting about it, like the old times. Or imagine a group of performers, theater performers, hundreds of them, would be paid by companies to go to these companies, to large companies with lots of employees, and during their lunch times, they would be telling them, like a story, like a storytelling experience, like a performance, the news that matters to them. The news that matter to them. That's also another possibility. Or you can think of long-form journalism mixed with performance art. You would have people wearing a t-shirt on which there is the title of the article, of the long-form article you want to launch and you want to showcase for the first time before you actually put it on your website or in your app or whatever. And then the headline would be on the t-shirt, and they would be spread around the city in public places, in subway stations, entrances, even in trains, within trains. And they would be carrying tens or a big number of printouts with that article on it. And then they would be selling these articles to anyone who was interested. So, or imagine video art. How can video art, public video art, can be useful to journalism? I think these are all new forms that would be worth exploring for the next few years for the newspapers and for journalism institutions. And I would like to end this presentation with this invitation of reimagining our world, reimagining ways we can reach people, given that how stressful life has become, and given how much radicalized ideas are being spread around and are becoming popular more and more. Maybe it's time now to expect from internet to surprise us, not to comfort us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you have time maybe for a couple of questions. And I just would like to ask you this. Do you think that there are already experiences or platforms that are more respectful of the idea of the open web, or the originality of the open web, or at least they are pointing into the right direction, or at least the direction of trying to a different direction from the one we are in today?
I think there must be some startups that I don't know already who are trying to do different things with different kinds of algorithms. And I think recently I've seen Medium.com adopting human curation for their content. And that's a good thing, in a way. But I think as long as we're not aware and conscious of the founding social values or the social values behind many of these products and concepts and technologies that we use, unless we are conscious about these, we wouldn't be able to imagine something different. And for me personally, I think we need to think of technologies and platforms that would promote diversity. Diversity is what we need now in this really, really fragmented world. And this would contribute to debate and understanding and hopefully to a more peaceful world.
Is there any question from the audience? Because we are running out of time, so please come up and ask, take the chance now. Any question? Right? No? You're too shy? Okay. And so... see? Okay. You have, please?
We can't see very well because of the light.
Hi, I was wondering whether the loss of hyperlinks, actually the loss of hypertext, doesn't entail also a loss of a time depth we have or we had with the open web. The social media is the present. I mean, the actuality, something that we read or do or understand now, while the web as we knew it provided us the possibility of building meaning through time.
I don't understand what you mean by, and I can't hear you very well because of the echo in the room.
When I just put something on the web, it's there on my database, I can link to it, you can link to it, and progressively it builds meaning through time, layers of meaning, because it's linked, it's hyperlinked, not just today, but it will be linked by something you write tomorrow or in a year or so on. We are losing all of this when we are on social media by definition, because it's now and there that we get our news, information, or whatever.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on the connection between time and hypertext. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, really a quick, please, a very quick question, because the last one, unfortunately.
Hello. Thank you very much for this very enriching presentation. I have a question.
We have a very bad echo
Yeah.
here, so we try to
Do I have to speak up?
very clearly, otherwise
Okay.
we have...
Okay, so thank you very much for this enriching presentation. I have a question also about the hyperlinks. You probably heard about Nicholas Carr and his book, The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. So there in this book, he basically talks about hyperlinks as something quite contrary to what you just spoke. He rather sees them as a weakness to humans' attention and to how we work with the internet. So how does his thesis works with yours, or how would you comment this?
I didn't hear the name of the book and the author who was arguing something differently. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, the book is called The Shallows, or What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, from Nicholas Carr.
What internet what?
Is doing to our brains.
To our brains.
Brains, yeah.
Okay. So is it a positive take on the effect, or is it negative? Okay. No, I haven't seen it. I would be curious to read it.
Thank you all. Thank you, Hossein, and thank you all again.